Hello guys and welcome back to O's on the Ball. Welcome to my round 14 tips video. So it was quite a long round, the most recent round. We did have the 8 games over 5 days and there's some good footy, there's some not so good footy, some low scoring matches, but also some close matches that were thrillers. So 1 out of 8 Ollie's Cole, not good, but 5 out of 8 tips is pretty decent. And finally uploaded my Carlton v GWS vlog, so if you're watching this, after you're done watching this, go check that out. But anyway, this is my tips video. So yeah, last week 5 out of 8 tips and 1 out of 8 Ollie's Coles. So as I said, round 13, 5 out of 8 tips, not great, and not too bad, but not great. And I did get all last 3 tips right, so it could have been much worse. First game, Bulldogs Hawks. I got it wrong. I said Bulldogs would win. Hawks won. Margin was 33 points off. Then I did tip Adelaide to get over the Lions in a close one, so that was good. Got my tip spot on. I said by 5. They won by 5. Then I tipped Richmond. They made me look pretty stupid. It was a horrible performance after quarter time. Sydney didn't play great. Richmond were just horrible. Then Geelong over Gold Coast, you would expect that. Port Adelaide GWS, a game that the Giants should be winning, but Port Adelaide were just the better side, so I got a tip wrong there. Then last 3 matches, North West Coast. North made it hard. It was a really bad first half to watch, but North did get up in the end. Carlton Essendon got my tip spot on, said the Blues by 8. They won by 8. And then finally, Melbourne Collingwood. Melbourne should have won, but Collingwood got the win by a point, so that's a correct tip. And then Freo and St Kilda had the byes. So on to my tips. First game of the round, Saints v Western Bulldogs. I don't know how, but the Saints and Bulldogs are already playing again. It's only been like 8 weeks and both teams have had the bye, so like 7 matches for both teams without playing that team. So it must be the minimum like you can go for them playing a team again. But it's at Marvel, 7:30pm Thursday night. Saints 5 and 7 last week had the bye, so we couldn't lose. But the week before that, we did have a pretty good win over Melbourne in Alice Springs. Melbourne did kick themselves out of the match, but still a pretty good performance from us. Bulldogs 6 and 6 last week, lost to Hawthorn by 22. It wasn't a great performance. It reminded the comp that they do have lots of injuries and Hawthorn are still a pretty good side, and yeah, so it wasn't a great performance, but they're 6 and 6, so this is a really crucial match. If the Saints win this, they're both on the same record, which would be crazy because the Saints aren't going well. Bulldogs expected to be push deep into finals. So Bulldogs always smash us. They've already smashed us once this year. I think that's going to happen again. They'll win comfortably by 40 points. And the O's called Bulldogs lead by 30 plus at half time. Then at Utah's, Hawthorn Adelaide on the Friday night, 7:40. This is a real 50-50 game. Hawks 8 and 5 last week beat the Bulldogs by 22. It was a pretty good performance against undermanned Bulldogs side, but they won. They got back on the winners list. Now they're 8 and 5, so they can get some momentum. This is a really big game for them, and if they win, well, they'll be back in top 4 contention. Then the Crows last week beat Brisbane by 5. It was a great performance. Probably after quarter time. Really good last quarter performance. Brisbane did have some chances that they probably should have capitalised on, but Crows did all they could and ended up winning in a close one in the end. A really big win for them. Yeah, this game really 50-50. Crows actually play alright at Utah's. I think they've won their last couple at Utah's, or at least their last match at Utah's. Hawks do play pretty well there though. But I'm going to go probably upset here, tip the Crows by 9, and my O's call both teams combined for 30 plus goals. Next game on the Saturday at 1:20pm at the Gabba, we've got Brisbane v GWS. Brisbane with a record of 9, 1 and 3. Last week lost to Adelaide by 5. Wasn't a great performance, and well, it was an okay performance. They just needed to take one of those chances in the last quarter. Then they would have won, but obviously didn't take their chances and ended up on the losing end And then the Giants, 7-6 last week, lost to Port Adelaide by 17. Wasn't a great performance or by 16 actually. It was a pretty poor performance for them, and you'd expect better from a team of the Giants' calibre, but they've got to move on now. They're got a big game against the Lions up at the Gabba. So whoever loses this is in a bit of trouble. Whoever wins this is going pretty well. So I reckon at the Gabba, Lions don't lose very much there. So I'm going to tip them by 27. And my other's called Tom Green has 25 plus disposals and kicks a goal. Geelong, Essendon, MCG, 4:15pm Saturday. Essendon 6-6 last week, lost to Carlton by 8. It was a pretty inspirational performance from the Bombers after, same against the Lions, but after a couple of bad weeks. And with the young side, they did their best, and it was a pretty good performance. Can't really ask for much more if you're a Bombers fan. If you look at their injuries and like some of their young players, really showed some promising signs. Then Cats 9-4 beat Gold Coast by 24. Was a pretty good performance at home. You would expect them to win that, and they're setting themselves up for another tilt at another shot at finals and the premiership, being 9-4, and you'd think Cats should get up in this one with their experience and the Bombers' inexperience. I'm going to tip the Cats by 36, and my eyes cold Geelong have 30 plus scoring shots. Next game at Optus, the first of 2 games at Optus for the round. North v Freo. So, Optus 7:35pm Saturday. North playing their second of 2 home games in WA. Last week, played at Bunbury, beat West Coast by 10. It was a horrible first half to watch with only 3 goals in the whole half, 4 goals in the whole half. But then it did pick up and teams did start to score in the second half. North ended up with the come from behind win to get up by 10 points. So now they're 3-1-8, and they're definitely on the up, the Roos. Had the draw against Brisbane, played a good 3 quarters against Collingwood, beat Richmond, beat West Coast, and I could see them playing decent in this one, but I think Freo being 7-5, coming off the bye, they've hit some form, so I reckon Freo should get up in this one by 18, with my eyes called North Melbourne lead at half time. Then the first of 2 games on the Sunday got Port Adelaide v Melbourne. Port Adelaide 5-7. Beat GWS by 16. They're a bit up and down, Port Adelaide. They've had some good performances against the likes of Hawthorn, GWS away, but then they've also had some really bad performances. So I reckon this one, you would expect them to play pretty well at home. And then you got the Demons 5-8 last week, lost to Collingwood by 1. Yesterday it was a pretty good performance, pretty inspiring performance from the Demons, a pretty young side compared to the experience of Collingwood, but they just couldn't get over the line in the end. Collingwood won in a close one, but they're definitely on the up as well, the Demons. They did have that bad performance against the Saints, but I have had some more promising performances. But being at the Adelaide Oval Sunday afternoon, I think the Power get up. I'm going to tip them to get up in this one by 31 points. With my Ollie's call that Rioli and Georgiades combined for 5 plus goals. And then the final game of the round, also second game of the round, Optus 6:10pm Sunday, got West Coast v Carlton. West Coast 1-12, last week lost to North Melbourne by 10. It was a pretty disappointing performance. They had the game. If only they kicked accurately, they could have put the game to bed, but they let North back into the game, and North got up in the end. There was some promising signs, but unfortunately for Eagles fans, wasn't a great performance. And they're 1-12, so they are looking for another win, and it's going to be a long season for Eagles fans. And then you got the Blues 5-7, beat Essendon by 8. It's a game they need to win if they have any chance of making finals. They did make it hard, but a win's a win, so you can't really complain. Now they've got West Coast this week, then North, so they could be 7-7, really set up for a chance of making finals. But 4 of those wins would have been over West Coast and North. Playing West Coast, these teams have already played in Gather Round, and then they play North next week. But they need to win these games if they want to be any chance of making finals, and I reckon they'll do that. I reckon they'll win by 63. My Oz called Carlton lead all game. So, round 14, recapping my tips. First game of the round, we've got St Kilda v Western Bulldogs. So, you'd think Western Bulldogs should get up pretty comfortably in this one, and I'm going to tip them by a margin of 40, given they always seem to beat us by a fair bit. Then next game, real 50-50 game. And, yeah, it really could have gone either way, but I'm going to go with the upset here. I'm going to tip the Crows, get up in a close one. And then Lions v Giants. Well, 3 pretty easy tips on Saturday. Lions should get up at home. Cats over the Young Bombers. And then Freo playing away but at home. And then on the Sunday, Port Melbourne, pretty 50-50. Well, not 50-50, but could go either way. But I reckon Port Adelaide usually play pretty good at home. And then Blues West Coast. Blues should get up. And then there's 4 teams with the bye: Collingwood, Gold Coast, Richmond, Sydney. So those are my tips for round 14.